Hello there, my beautiful kittens. In this video, we're just going to be doing a build and guide and also team comps for Misha. It's just a simple character build guide, how to build him, how should you play him, and stuff like that. So yeah, let's begin. Alright, so first of all, starting off with his skills and roles, we're just going to explain his kit very quick. So first of all, we have his basic attack. It's just going to deal ice damage to an enemy and that's it. Mainly in most situations, you won't really be using that. His elemental skill is going to hit like 3 enemies. The middle enemy is going to be hit more, and then 2 other targets around the enemy are going to be hit with kind of way less damage. But yeah, it's just basic ice damage to 3 enemies, that's it. It's also going to add 1 hit to your elemental burst, and talking about his elemental burst, it has 3 hits by default, and it can increase its hits up to 10 from your elemental skill and also your talent that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, his elemental burst is basically just going to do like 3 to 10 ice hits. The first hit is going to have a base chance of 24% to freeze the enemy, which is kind of low, but with the whole like effect hit rate and stuff like that we're going to talk about in a little bit, it's going to be actually a very good base chance. We're going to be able to freeze enemies quite a lot. But yeah, the first hit is just going to freeze an enemy, and then the rest of the hits are just going to hit a random enemy, and that's it. Up to a maximum of 9 hits to a random enemy. And also when the enemy is frozen at the beginning of each turn, Misha's going to give him 36% of his attack as damage. That's pretty much his ultimate. Just freezes one enemy and then gives him DOT, and then hits another random enemy with 9 hits, or the rest of the hits depending on how many do you have. And then finally you have your talent. Is that whenever you consume 1 skill point by any other ally on your team, you're gonna add 1 hit to your ultimate, again up to 10 hits. So it's gonna be much easier to have like the full 10 hits, and that's it. You're not gonna have to use Misha's skill consistently to have the full 10 hits. No, every time you consume a skill, it doesn't matter of like who's the teammate, your ultimate is gonna gain 1 extra hit. Now as Trace's Ascension 2 is just gonna increase your chance of freezing, which is pretty good because the base chance is kind of low, so any increased chance is going to be very appreciated. A4 is going to increase your effects hit rate, which is pretty much the same thing. And then finally A6 is that when you deal damage to frozen enemies, it's going to increase your crit damage by 30%. Just, you know, cool traces, all of them are just going to increase your chances of freezing enemies and also your damage by a little bit. So now we explain his kit. His roles are kind of obvious. He's going to mainly be played as a main DPS, that's like his main role, but as you guys can see here, he can also be played as a sub DPS in a lot of scenarios. You just want to make sure your team is skill point positive enough, and then other than that, you can just play him at any team as like a secondary DPS or whatever. Also, his ult is gonna have 9 hits on like the same enemy, so on like big enemies, it's definitely gonna be a very good tool for weakness break. You're just gonna be using your elemental skill, use your other DPSs or your other character's skills, charge up his ultimate, and then whenever you get your ults, just attack enemies, and that's it. Just pretty simple to use. Now moving on to your trace priorities. Generally speaking, as a main DPS, so you'd want to upgrade all of your traces because, you know, it's already a 4-star DPS, so you definitely want to upgrade them all like at the same order to the maximum, or at least like the maximum you can do. But if you want to have a priority, I'd say his elemental burst needs upgrading first, and then you have your skill and talent, and then finally your auto attacks. But again, especially your skill and talent and burst, you definitely want to upgrade them all at the same like close rate because he's just a main DPS. Now moving on to your Eidolons. E1 is that when you use your ult, for every enemy on the field, it's going to give you 1 extra hit. So if you don't already have like the 10 maximum, it's going to give you 1 extra hit for each enemy on the field, up to a maximum of 5 hits increase. It's just going to allow you to reach your maximum faster in case you're not really doing it with your team, which is good. It's just more damage sometimes, and that's pretty much it. It's definitely not something like consistent that you'd want to rely on because first of all, like you don't know how many enemies you have in the field and stuff like that, but it's definitely cool, especially for an E1. So I'd say E1 is good. E2 is that before each hit lands from your ult, you have a 24% base chance of reducing the target's defense by 16% for 3 turns, which is very good. Any defense shred is going to be pretty good. Melee is only going to be on 1 target, I think, but it's definitely still pretty decent against like big enemies and stuff like that. Especially with like the effect hit rate that you're going to gain from your traces and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be a very good chance, which is good. So yeah, I'd say E2 is also good. Maybe even very good, I would say. E3 is just level of your elemental burst and basic attack. It's cool. E4 is just going to increase your multipliers, your ultimate. It's also cool. It's just extra damage. I'm not sure how much, but it's probably wouldn't really be like super big as like a damage increase, but it's a multiplier for each hit. So it's going to be like what, 60% at maximum, which is pretty good. So yeah, I'd say E4 is cool. E5, just level of your elemental skill and talent, which is good. And then finally, E6 is just going to increase your damage by 30% when you use your ultimate. And then then pretty much just gonna give you a free skill point. That's it. It's also good, but I'm not really sure if it's like super good, especially as an E6. So I'd say, you know, it's cool. It's mid, especially as an E6. But yeah, all of his Eidolons are like kind of cool, especially as a main DPS. You definitely don't really need any of them for him to function. But the more you get, the better, obviously. None of them are gonna like ruin him or change him or anything like that. So yeah, just get as much as you can if you're serious about, you know, maining him. That's it. But even at E0 is definitely gonna be very playable. Now, moving on to your light cones. Before we continue with that though, did you subscribe to the channel? Yeah, of course. You did not. Okay, can you do it? Thank you. Back to the video. Generally speaking, the best option you'd want to go for, and the only option to be honest, is gonna be on the fall of an Aeon. Obviously S5, but it's free to play, so everyone's gonna have it S5. It's just gonna give you a lot of attack, like 60%. And then when you inflict some weakness break on an enemy, it's also gonna increase your damage even more. And as we said before, Misha is gonna be a very good weakness breaker if they have ice weaknesses. So yeah, it's definitely gonna be one of his best icon options. Probably the best to be honest, and it's free to play. So I would say most people should probably use this one. Other 5-star options, I'd say something replaceable is probably the next best thing. It's also just gonna give you attack, and then manually you're gonna be able to trigger the damage bonus, but it's definitely way less consistent than on the fall of an Aeon. And also the unreachable side may be good too, just for the crit rate, and you're also gonna be able to have the second part of the weapon active most of the time, which is gonna give you damage bonus. With other 5-star light cones, generally speaking, you probably wouldn't really be able to trigger their full like passives, which makes them unviable in my opinion. And then finally for 4-star options, again, I don't know why you're going with that, because you have on the fall of an Aeon, but hey, obviously his signature 4 stars is gonna be pretty good. It's just gonna increase your weakness break effects by 28%. It's gonna be a very good weakness breaker, so that's good. And then it's gonna increase your crit rate when you use your ultimate, which is also just good. I think it's probably gonna be his best 4 stars generally speaking, so I don't think you should use any other 4 stars if you have this weapon. But yeah, again, I repeat, you don't really need to do any of that. Just use on the fall of an Aeon. That's it. Just do your simulated universe, man. It's fun. Now, moving on to your relic sets, your best go-to option is probably gonna be the Hunter of Glacial Forest. It's just the basic for any like ice DPS. It's gonna increase your ice damage, and then when you use your ult, it's just gonna increase your crit damage by 25% for 2 turns, which is just good for him. It's definitely gonna be his best set generally speaking. Obviously ignoring like the substats. So I don't really see any other sets except for like the new set, which is the Pioneer. I reviewed these sets before, but you're gonna have to play him with a debuffer. If you're not playing with a debuffer, it's not really gonna work that well. But if you are playing with a debuffer, it's gonna be pretty good too. It's gonna increase your damage bonus, and then you're gonna be able to use like the full effect if you have another debuffer, because you're gonna be putting freeze on enemies, so you're gonna be debuffing them. And then with another debuffers have like the 3 or 4 buffs, you're gonna gain some crit rate and crit damage, which is pretty good. So yeah, it's viable too, but I don't really see any reason why you should use it, especially because it just came out. I definitely wouldn't really say go farm it for him. So if you already have the ice set, just use it and that's it. But if you're farming from like scratch, this set might be worth it. So yeah, it's up to you. They're pretty similar in performance either way, so just use one of them. If you don't have any of them, you can just mix any 2 pieces like ice damage, attack, whatever. Now moving on to the stats on your relics. So on your body, usually you want crit rate or crit damage. Which one of them, it just depends on you. You just want to make sure you have a good 1-to-2 ratio, above 50% crit rate, and then that's it. So yeah, it just depends on what you have and what you need. Either one of them is going to be pretty good. On your feet, you'd want to go either attack or speed. Again, it depends on your speed goals. If you reach like 134 with only like your substats, and in that case, you can just go attack on your feet. If not, or if you want to reach like 161 and want to go for like top-notch speed, in that case, you might go for speed on your feet too. So yeah, again, it's up to you. On your sphere, you just want to go with ice damage and then attack on your rope. That's pretty much it. For your substats, you'd want crit rate or crit damage, attack, and speed. Again, the priority is just depends on what you need really, and then like what light cone you used, what teammates you have, what buffs you have, and stuff like that. But yeah, most substats you're looking for are just gonna be like either crit, attack, or speed. That's pretty much it. I don't think you really need anything other than that. Most other things are gonna be either on your traces or you don't need them. For the final stats, again, you just want to have above 50% crit rate, something close to a 1-to-2 crit ratio for your crit damage, or more if you have like a very high crit rate, and then 134 or 161 speed. It's just simple, you know, it's just your usual main DPS stuff, nothing really special. And now finally moving on to your team comps. Generally speaking, for main DPS team comps, it's also very simple. You just want to use with like a buffer, debuffer, and then a sustain. And you'd also want to make sure it's at least somewhat skill point positive, positive, so you can use your skill and stuff like that. So just a team example, obviously you have Misha as a main DPS. For a buffer or harmony, you can use something like Ron Mei, for example, or Ting Yun or whatever. Ting Yun is going to be pretty good. It's going to give you energy, which means you can have your ultimate faster, which means more damage. A debuffer, you can use Payla. She's honestly a very good option. She's also ice, and she's also very skill point positive, so that's going to be very good. And the defense threat and stuff like that are going to be pretty good. So yeah, Payla is definitely a very good option. And then for your sustain, you'd want any sustain pretty much. So you can have like Lucha, Ho-Ho, for example, Lynx, whatever. Again, I prefer Ho-Ho just for the energy recharge, but any sustain, as long as they sustain you, can work. And then finally, you can also use him as a sub DPS, obviously. So you can use him as like in a team with another DPS, but then like you're going to be building the team around your actual DPS. But yeah, just to throw an example out here, we can say like Xing Liu, for example, and then you can have like Ron Mei, and then Misha, and then let's say Silverwolf is going to be a very good breaker. Silverwolf is going to add like the ice weakness. It's going to be breaking the ice weakness, which is good for Ron Mei. And then Xing Liu is just your main DPS, so that's a random team. But yeah, again, you can use him at any team as long as it's like it doesn't mess up like your skill points. Any team like that's skill point positive and needs like a sub DPS, he's going to be usable. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.